So welcome everybody, I'm Laura Kennedy, I'm the Director of the Lower School. Also here with me today presenting will be Dr. Kristin Whithey, who's the Academic Learning Specialist, and also Mr. Scott Pasieka, who's our School Counselor. So they'll also be presenting as part of this. So this morning, just a quick overview of our agenda. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my approach to change and any curricular updates that we may be making in the next couple of years. I'm going to talk a little bit about Character Strong, which is our social emotional learning program. I'm going to talk about the Good Citizenship program, a few lunch reminders. I'll talk about some key updates that we've made, school families, and then I'll also turn it over to Dr. Whithey and Mr. Pasieka, who will talk about their programs. So really just my approach to change, and because the big question when somebody comes in new is, are you going to change things? Are you going to change? Really trying to take a very slow, measured approach to change, because this is a great school. It's a great school, awesome teachers. There's really not this huge need to change. There's a need to update some things though. So that's really what we're really looking at in the next few years. And really this year is kind of like a first year for me, because last year I didn't get to see a lot of things. I didn't get to see programs, for example. I didn't get to see all these school events. And so this year is really a year to look at those things critically, see if we can make improvements. So that's really, kind of my philosophy. So there's no change just for change's sake. I've seen a lot that works. I've worked in, this is my 30th year in education, and this is my 9th school. I worked in independent schools across the country and internationally. So I've seen a lot that works. There's a lot out there that works. But certainly, things that are working here in the Meadows, we're not going to be looking at changing. Mr. Pettit just joined us as well, so welcome, Mr. Pettit. So if we have any questions that I can't answer, he should be able to answer them. And really, when we're looking at any making changes, we're looking at research. That really informs our changes. What is best practice? What does research saying? So an example is, looking at neuroscience. The way we teach today is a little bit different than the way we might have learned 20, 30, 40 years ago, where a teacher might have stood in front of the class and just lectured, and just kind of look at you. Do you understand? Did you get enough? Did you get that? We now know kids at this age, they need small chunks. They need small bits of information and then frequent checks. So there'll be a little bit more talking in the classroom, a little bit more turn to your partner and talk about this. There's an expression I like, which is if you want to hear it, you talk. If you want them to learn it, they talk. So you'll see teachers using a lot of turn to your partner and discuss this. You'll see them taking brain breaks. You'll hear kids talking about doing a go noodle, for example, or taking a brain break just to get them up and moving, because we know that movement helps enhance the learning. So those are just kind of some examples of how teaching has changed a little, but also research will inform our curricular decisions. And sometimes we're going to look at research and say, you know what? We do it slightly differently here at the Meadows, and we're gonna look at the research and know about it, but we're going to continue to do things a little bit differently. There are some older, outdated texts that we just simply can't get anymore that we'll be looking at changing in the next couple of years. But really, we haven't made any major changes in grades 2 to 3. The only thing I've really asked them to do is increase the problem solving in math. Because looking at some data last year from some national problem-solving tests we took, I was a little underwhelmed with how they did in problem-solving. So I've just asked them to concentrate a little bit more on problem-solving, which is, the essence of math. We want our kids to be good problem-solvers. So that's really the only curricular change, but we haven't changed textbooks. You might hear we did change some texts in kindergarten and first grade. We changed the reading program into reading, which we hope will then bring kids into 2nd grade as stronger readers, even though our reading program is excellent here. So we really found no urgent need to change it in 2nd and 3rd grade. Another thing we did is we implemented this year team leaders in each grade level, and that's really to bring consistency to the grade level. So everything from grading practices to homework, so that they talk to each other and that things are consistent. I don't necessarily want cookie cutter classes, but I want you to feel like your child's getting the same experience, being graded the same way, getting about the same amount of homework as the kids in the other grade. So Mr. Pettit is the team leader for 3rd grade, and Mrs. Osby is the team leader for 2nd grade. So talking a little bit about our Character Strong program, so social emotional learning, and first just the rationale of why do schools need a character education program, or what is SEL? Social emotional learning involves self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And why do we need it? Well, one of the factors is it improves test scores, it improves academics performance. There's lots of different studies out there. This one quote is from a study from about 10 years ago that improved test scores by 11 percentile points, which is significant. It also reduces aggression and emotional distress and behavior in schools, and improves positive attitudes towards self and others. And an effective social emotional learning program really improves school culture overall. So the simplest definition is it improves school climate, and it's how people feel on campus. We want our kids to feel safe, happy. We don't want them to have minimized stress, be able to be at that optimal learning where stress, a little bit of stress is great for learning, a lot of stress is not. So the foundation of this is built on monthly character traits. So we've already looked at courage, respect was this month, and this coming up is perseverance, which is really about grit and tenacity. The program is really easy for teachers to use. It has a lot of different definitions and posters and things like that they can use, discussion prompts, activities, videos, games, books. So there's lots of different books, and I'll be putting like different titles in our monthly memo, a weekly memo that you could read at home if you're interested in pursuing more at home, or prompts for you as parents at home. They take a few minutes per day. Some teachers chunk it and we'll do a little bit longer segment towards the end of the week, but most teachers tend to do 5, 10, 15 minutes per day. I walked into Ms. Osby's class yesterday and they were doing this activity. This is called the power line activity. And so I thought, we're going to get you up and we're going to try this. So I'm going to ask you to stand up. You don't have to come forward, you can just stand in your seat. So this is something to just get kids understanding differences, that we're all different and respect our differences. And so what this is called is power line. And so I put up a prompt here, broccoli. So if you don't like it and loathe it, you move to this side of the room. If you're kind of in the middle, move to the middle. And if you love it, you go to that side of the room. Okay, so power line, move right now. So that's an example of power line, and then what the teacher does with that activity is in between, they get kids to talk to each other about it. And, you have friends who have differences, and it's about respecting differences and discussing things with each other. So that's just an example of a character strong activity. Okay, moving on just to talk a little bit about our Good Citizenship program and just the changes that we made. We changed it last year because we had to, because there were no programs. And we decided that based on teacher feedback in particular and student feedback, that we like the changes. So I'm just going to explain kind of how it works this year. So it happens naturally, not on a schedule. In the past, it would happen during programs, which were happening about 16 times a year. So this happens whenever a kid is caught doing something good. Any teacher can give an award. So music, science, everybody can give an award. And we mainly focus on the character traits. So courage was a big one at the beginning, respect this month. I've seen tons of kids this month for respect, so that's really a nice thing. And towards the end of the year, for example, we have creativity is something. So if a child doesn't get one early on, maybe had a hard time at the beginning of the year, there's opportunities that really fit them. So sometimes creative kids aren't always the best behaved, so it might be a time at the end of the year. There's also classroom goals or improvement, also are ways that they can get them. And kids can get more than one. So already this year, kids have received more than one award. Students come into my office to talk about it. And so it's been a really good way for me to get to know the kids, particularly last year when it was hard to get to know the kids. Reduces the stigma of being in the principal's office as well. And the way it works is the teachers hand out what they call a green slip at any time, and then they call my office, and sometimes they'll send home a group of kids. Mr. Pettit typically sends a group and will announce it to his class. Here's how the kids got it, here's what they did. And they'll come up and I'll have them talk about what they did. We'll chat about how school's going in general. And then I'll mail home what we call the Good Citizenship card in the mail. So that's a little bit about that program. I wanted to just give a couple of lunch reminders, just that hot lunch especially is not the time to tell your kid to try something new. So really try to take a look at the menu, because I do lunch duty almost every day, and often there are kids there going, I told my mom I don't like, the other day it was pancakes. I couldn't believe a couple of kids didn't like pancakes, but they don't, so some of them. But there's always sandwiches and salads as an alternative. And we're really asking kids not to throw away their lunch if they bring it from home, if they don't eat it, to tell you about it. That's another thing I'll get is, I told my mom I don't like peanut butter sandwich. Okay, well, you need to go home and show your mom that you didn't eat it. And it would be helpful if they could open all their items too, if possible. And they are given extra time to eat. So I've heard a lot from parents that they only have 10 minutes. They actually they come in, especially the little ones, early, so they have 15, and then they can stay and eat. So they see their friends go, they don't always want to stay and eat, but they are welcome to stay and eat. There's plenty of time in between lunch and recess. Just want to talk about a couple updates we made in PE. Class times we increased slightly, so twice a week they have 45-minute classes to meet national standards. We also have twice a week each grade level, Mondays and Thursdays. All the grade goes together. This gives the opportunity for teachers to have valuable planning time, which is something they really have not had in the past. It's really important for consistency and curriculum development for them to have time to talk to each other together. It also gives us a time to configure the classes in different ways. So we can do different stations, we can differentiate, we can have a lot of different flexibility when the class goes together with 3 teachers instead of 2. So on those days, just to be clear, it isn't just 2 teachers with 60 kids, it's 3. Mr. Colcannon from middle and upper school also joins in on those days. We're also doing assessments in PE. They've been doing them all the last couple of weeks, and you'll be getting them at home. It's based on their motor skills, strength, and fitness, and we're doing that twice a year. So they'll be sharing those results very shortly with you, and then in the spring they'll be assessed again. So they're doing everything from skipping and hopping to sit-ups, push-ups, that kind of thing. And then finally, I just want to mention school families. Hopefully your kids have talked about it a little bit. We started a couple weeks ago. It's designed to increase community throughout the school. And so every child in school, kinder through 12, is assigned to a school family. And the senior acts as the leader, the head of family. And then all of the adults are also assigned to these school families. And so groups are about 20, 21. And we meet all over the school. So the first day we all met on the field, and we went to our locations. And we're doing activities designed to get them to know each other, so that when you go to a football game, maybe your child will say, oh my gosh, the quarterback's in my family. Or when you go to you hear about somebody getting an award in middle school, that kid's in my family, when they see each other on campus. So it's a really great program. We hope we'll just continue to improve. Your child's experience in the first week might have differed a little bit based on who was their senior. So please give it a chance. We're really working with the seniors to make sure that we're really developing community and making it as fun as possible for all of the students. But definitely my senior was a little shy at first. I had to kind of jump in and kind of, do a little more rah-rah. But then I saw a senior coming back from middle school, and they had to make up names for their family. So our family is the Sharks. And his family was called something about the Corral Crusaders, that's what it was. So they were chanting Corral Crusaders, and then they had a chant, something about, let's go get some food or something. And they're doing motions and coming back. It just looked like a blast. And that's the kind of thing we're going for, is really high energy, fun activities. So those are my updates for now. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Kristin Whithey, who's going to talk a little bit about literacy at this age and offer some tips for you. Then Mr. Pasieka will talk a little bit, and then we'll have time for some Q&A.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to move this upwards and hope it stays. So I am the academic learning specialist here. I've met with a lot of you already. It's good to see familiar faces. But I just wanted to share a little bit about what my role is here, and then share even more about how we can support literacy at this age. So I work here to support the unique learning needs of all of our students. So you might hear about a student success plan, which is our form of offering individualized support in the classrooms. You might also hear of students coming to the learning lab so that they have a quiet space if they need a space to get some work done. Or they might come in if they need to complete some extra challenging math because they've already finished all of their math work and they want to expand their learning. I also work with all of the teachers to help strategize ways that they could do a new fun activity or ways that they could help reach additional learners in their classroom. So I work one-on-one with students, I work with all of our teachers, I help look at the curriculum that we're using. I'm a little bit of everything, but today, and what's important for you is I also want to work with our families to make sure that you feel like you have a resource. So if ever you are looking for an outside tutor or you need a recommendation for an extra math activity, or you wonder how you could be working on spelling words with your students, I am that resource for you as well, and please feel free to reach out to me at any time. But to start that, I wanted to look at literacy. Like Ms. Kennedy was saying, we do have a new program in our K-1, and so as we move that, as we work to support the K-1 students in their new literacy program, I also want to make sure that you are aware of how to support your children at this age too. So in the 1990s, which my husband so kindly reminded me is now as far away from us as the 2050s, gotta love that. They came out, the National Reading Panel came out with what are the elements of literacy that should be supported, and they identified 5 elements, and those are kind of still what we roll with. Even though it was that long ago, we still focus on these 5 elements of phonemic awareness, so that is hearing the sounds, rhyming, playing with alliteration. Then we move in towards phonics, which is attaching that written component, that letter with that letter sound. We also look at fluency, so how quickly and how fluently can you read? And then comprehension, are you actually understanding what you're reading while you're reading it fluently? And then underwriting all of that is written expression. So typically what we see is a child who is building their phonemic awareness, is also building that application of, okay, if I'm saying I'm writing A. And then as we move towards more fluent reading, we also typically see more fluent writing. So I have this pathway, but truly underwriting all of it should be that written expression goes along with these different components. So in grades 2 and 3, we see that they're more in a transitional stage of learning. So they're moving away from that phonics piece. They're moving away from having to sound out consonant, vowel, consonant, and are instead starting to see chunks in their words. So they're starting to see prefixes and suffixes and know what those mean and be able to write those as well. They're moving away from really having to struggle through what they're reading and pronouncing each letter into building that fluency and that comprehension. So at this stage, they're really focusing on being that fluent reader who understands what they're saying or what they're reading. Same thing in their spelling. They're moving away from having to just focus on attaching letters and sounds into being able to put in a prefix or a suffix, into being able to identify where to break apart those syllables. So again, they're starting to expand their vocabulary that they're able to spell more fluently. So instead of focusing on just putting down letters and sounds, they're focusing on the content of what they're writing. So similar to what they're reading, they're understanding what they're reading. It's more, what are their ideas being generated? So that means, what should you be focusing at home with them? And truly what we should be focusing on, or areas that you could support and do activities for, are continuing to focus on that fluency, because we know that if a child can read fluently, that will help in the comprehension side of things. If you're struggling over words, you have to sound out each letter as you're reading through, that really detracts from comprehending and understanding what you're reading. We also want to focus on building vocabulary. So the more words that we have just in our oral vocabulary, the more words that we're familiar with, the more we're going to recognize as we're looking at them in a book. The more words that we have in our head, the more that we can understand what we're accessing on the page. And finally, we want to really focus on comprehension because in these grade levels, we are moving away from building that phonemic awareness, building those phonics skills into understanding. So we're moving away from learning how to read and switching into reading to learn. So on top of our piano over there, I have a whole bunch of handouts if there are any areas that you are specifically interested in learning more about for your child, or if you want some additional tips and strategies for a specific area. Everything is splayed out over there for you, as well as my card. And then I also wanted to introduce to you one more special thing that we have going on this year. We are starting a lending library of take-home kits for all families that include games and activities, fun ways to work on building those academic skills with you and your child at home. So you will get, if you are interested, you can sign up or email me which specific bag that you're looking to take home. It will show up in your child's backpack on the Monday, and then you will keep it and return it in your child's backpack on the following Monday. So you have the whole weekend to play and enjoy. We have, for the little ones, we have things like phonics and sight words, and then all the way up through 5th grade, we have both a reading and a math pack that you can check out. I will also be throwing in there additional strategies or apps or games that you could look into, and those will be refreshed. The basic content will stay the same, but there will be additional ideas in there for you as well. And so now it is time for me actually to send it over to my other half. So I am the academic side of things, and Mr. P is our social emotional student support side, and so he's going to come up next.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kristin. I guess I'm up here to kind of talk about why I'm here and what I plan to do while I'm here. And I think a big part of understanding what I plan on doing while I'm here is understanding what brought me here. So a little bit about me. My favorite thing about, I have a master's in clinical counseling, and my favorite thing about that degree is it offered a lot of versatility. I was able to try a lot of different kinds of jobs before I figured out what's the best job. So I've been able to work with kids in hospitals. I've been able to work with people in hospice. I've been able to work in a private practice with adolescents and adults, families. Eventually I landed into schools, and that's where I really fell in love. School is a challenging place for a child. I had to be reminded of that. I used to think, hey, your job, you go to school, you come home, you eat some mac and cheese, and watch cartoons. How hard could it be? But, school involves a lot of challenges. 7 hours a day, we're asking someone to try something hard, try to learn something new, try to figure out who you are, try to make some friends, get along with a teacher, respect the adults. There's just an endless list of things that we're constantly asking kids to do, and then after it, they go home and do homework. They learn how to play violin. They might do some gymnastics. Some of these kids have a more full Google Calendar than I do. So when I went into schools, I really saw that there was a great need to teach kids how to balance something like that. That there was a lot of teaching happening in school, but how much of it was about me learning how to deal with what's happening to me, me teaching you about what's happening to me. And so I tried to get into schools to try to learn from the kids. I know a lot of things we have to teach kids. We have to show them the adult way. We have to show them how to learn multiplication, how to divide, how to properly make a sentence with good grammar, which I'm probably just butchered that right there. But I really enjoyed listening to the children and understanding their experience and learning from them. I've talked to a lot of you parents already. I've met a lot of you, and I feel welcomed in this community, so first thing I want to say is thank you. And your kids are welcome into this community. And the kids give me an amazing image of the school, an amazing image of who they are and what they need and what they're asking for. And so through that, I've learned how to learn from a child. Your kids see me in this school in a variety of settings. One is that every 2 weeks I go into their classroom and I do a social and emotional learning lesson. We explore ideas that are written on their walls and really teach them what they mean. If I walk into the classroom and I see words like courage, empathy, cooperation, I ask kids often, how do I develop empathy? How do I do that? I ask adults that sometimes. And they look at me just like the kids look at me when I ask them that. And so what I realized is that we have these expectations, these values that we know are good for kids. And we want them to have them, but how do we teach them how to build them? At this age, I feel like it's really through experiences. When I think about how I continue to try to become culturally competent, or how I break down some of my biases that I had from childhood, it was through meeting people, through talking to them, through experiencing them, and showing me that maybe some of these thoughts I had in my head were not so right. I couldn't read that in a book. I had to talk to people. One of the greatest strengths I see at Meadows is its diversity. Is how we have children at different academic levels, children from different backgrounds, children with different traditions. I think that's an amazing learning opportunity for kids. So we learn lessons that way. We talk to them about empathy. We let them tell us how they show empathy to each other. We give them words. We ask them words. One thing we were talking about the other day, we had a kid stand up and say, look, I got 100% on my spelling test. Look at me. And I heard another kid say, well, don't brag. Don't brag. Keep your grades yourself. Not a bad message. Then I asked the kid, is it okay to be proud of yourself? Is that okay? Is it because that child got 100% and I got 80%, does that mean I'm worse than that child? So what can I say to that kid? Instead of saying, like, don't brag, what can I say? How can I show empathy to that child and keep raising him? I can say, good job. I can say, hey, you probably worked really hard. You deserve that. One kid raised his hand and said, I can say, hey, I'm not so good at that. Could you teach me? Kids have amazing ideas. I learn from children all the time. They remind me of a kind of time of when I didn't see as much as I see now. When I was truly just trying to experience the world. I try to bring that into the classroom. I try to let them learn from each other. I tell your children all the time, I'm not the teacher. I'm not the student. I'm both. So are you. We're talking about social, emotional learning. You have socialized. You have emotions. You have experiences. So I can learn from you. One last thing that I want to cover. Some parents have reached out about, okay, when will you call me if there's an issue? Some people think there's a counselor in the building and I'm in like a clinical relationship with 400 children. My kid doesn't need counseling. You're probably right. You're probably right. We probably don't. And that's why I'm not in a clinical relationship with them. I'm just kind of here to help guide or be a person that they can go to. But some of that stuff that isn't in the book. Some of the stuff that's just as important to learn as every fact in that book. Someone to bounce it off of, a safe space that they can feel vulnerable, that they can fail, and know that it's okay. I failed too. One theme that keeps coming up with the students here, something I want to cover with the parents, is stress. Stress of expectation. I'm a firm believer in holding children to a high expectation. I think they will meet the bar that we set, but it also has to be developmentally appropriate. It also has to allow space for failure. There is not one thing I know how to do that I did not fail at first. I didn't know how to eat. I missed my mouth, and my mom would say, "Oh, Scotty, right there." I don't know how to walk. I'd fall. My mom, get up. One foot in front of the other. Everything I know how to do, I failed at. Failure is inherent to the learning process. It's required. Failure is also inherent to perseverance. The definition of perseverance is overcoming struggle. If I don't struggle, I can't persevere. So rather than holding kids to an unattainable standard of perfection, I'm there to help them when they fail and to help them see the lessons in what they learn. That's what I'm trying to bring more of into not only this one, just into the world. So that's just a little bit about who I am. I know that this school may be a little bit new to the idea of a counselor, specifically the lower school, being very hands-on. And I know that change, for better or worse, is hard. No matter what. I could leave my ex who was terrible to me and I still miss her. It's a hard breakup. Change is hard. I understand that. So if you want to know a little bit more about me, about what we're doing, I beg you to come talk to me. Don't make an appointment. Let's work together. It takes a village, but the village has to talk to one another. It just can't be a village. So thank you again for welcoming me to your community. It's been an amazing experience to be here, and I look forward to meeting every single one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. P. Kids call him Mr. P. We have a few minutes for any questions, Q&A. If anyone has any questions for any of us. Yes.
Hi, I know you covered on this briefly with the lunch, but I have 3 different students in 3 different classes, and all of them are telling me they don't feel like they're getting enough time to finish their lunch.
Okay.
So, and I know that everything I send in their lunch boxes they eat regular.
Sure,
And they're coming home literally like not eating even cookies in their lunch.
Okay.
I'm like, what's going on? And they're just saying they just feel a lot of pressure to leave the lunchroom to leave late,
Okay.
and so they're not finishing it.
Okay. I'll make a note of that because I'm in lunch, like I said, almost every day, and I have a pretty good handle on the kids now who need the extra prompting. So I'm definitely trying to notice and also remind them the next few lunches too that, hey, we haven't finished, you need to stay. Your parents are asking you to stay and finish. But yeah, that's the hardest thing is they see their friends and they just pack up right
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's over, we go.
Yeah. But there's a few kids. There's 3 4th and 5th graders, and there's 2 2nd and 3rd graders who are about the slowest eaters I've ever seen in my life, and they just take their time and they stay after because they can stay, and we stay as long as they need. So just tell them that they can stay as long as they need. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
The reading program that is going to change for kindergarten.
Sorry, I can't really hear here.
Sorry, the reading program.
Uh-huh.
Can you discuss how, because I was just always under the impression that the toddler method is so great. And obviously, we have kids who are very, very literate at a younger age at this school compared to other schools. How have we changed it exactly? Where is the shift there? Is that a preschool is going to be kindergarten next year?
Sure. Yeah, so in my in the K-1 here at Coffee, I kind of went into detail about some of the exact changes. So that just came out on video. So if you want to see that, I definitely talk about the systems. But basically, the old reading program wasn't necessarily a cohesive program. The teachers picked and chose from a lot of different things. So they had a phonics element, they had spelling, they had writing, they had reading, but it was all from different publishers, all from different programs, and they just made it work from their experience. So they're all very experienced teachers, and they picked and choose, and so they would do phonics here, they would do reading here, they do spelling. This program, that's a lot of work, and it also invites gaps and holes in reading and phonics if they haven't, because it's not designed to be together. They just brought it together. So the program we chose, we looked at every single reading program out there. Dr. Whithey was on the committee. All the K-1 teachers were on the committee. We brought in all the samples from all over, and we chose this program called Into Reading, which blends all of those things. And after this as well, I can grab a couple of samples and show you. I had them at my last coffee and talked about that. But what it does is, for example, the phonics, if they're working on 3-letter CVC words, then the story they're reading has those words in it. So it reinforces it over and over and over again. The spelling, again, links with the phonics. So we haven't invented something like we did piecemeal in previous years. It's all cohesively together. The other really important part of this reading program is a lot of our textbooks, particularly reading, are 20 and 30 years old. And I have a problem with that for a couple of reasons. But one of the main things is the lack of diversity in a lot of the characters in the stories. So this reading program comes with wonderful new literature. So real authentic sets of books. So the kids are going home with really high interest readers. And I've heard that a lot from the K-1 parents. That kids love these books. They're much more up to date, the content. And there's a lot more nonfiction. There's really quality nonfiction, which there wasn't before either. And so they're called leveled readers, and they're reading it at their level as well, which they were doing before as well. But this is just much more high quality. So those are the main changes. And again, I'm happy to show you samples. Yes, Mr. Gregerson.
In that vein, can you talk a little bit about the difference between changing a program and changing materials? Mm-hmm. Because I think that what Roshan's getting at is historically, there's been an approach to reading and reading practice and different groups. Can you talk a little bit about how those practices historically from school have been or not been changed or impacted by the adoption of up-to-date materials?
Sure. So the question was, have we really changed methods or methodology, or have we just changed mostly the content or the curriculum? It is the content, really. So the teachers are still, historically, they've always read several times a day. They still do that. They just do it with higher quality materials, in my opinion. So there really hasn't been a significant change in teaching and philosophy towards reading. We still read just as much, if not more, than before. This program actually invites a little bit more literacy time because it's all together. So the grammar and the spelling and the writing is all cohesive. So the literacy block has actually been expanded. So as Mary Beth Cleland said the other day, with this program, I could be teaching literacy 6 hours a day. That's how much material there is. So it's just really rich with all these great flashcards and components and games and online activities and things like that, which all brings the program together. But as far as like methodology, kids practicing fluency, oral reading, all of that is still very much a part of our program. Okay, time for another question or two. Yes?
So we always say phrases in Meadows if you love Meadows. Mm-hmm. Just had a family ask that you here, and we said, we got these Meadows. And so they're in middle school. And we said, how do you like Meadows? He said, it's great. But there's a lack of diversity. That's what he said, because his daughter is obviously a color, and she kind of feels different in this than kids of color. So I just want to let you know that is still
something out in the community.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question just was, so some of you couldn't hear it, is she recommended the Meadows to a friend who just moved to town, and the comment was, oh, I've heard about the Meadows and there's a lack of diversity. And so that is still something that's out in the community, is what she's saying. So that is something, Mr. Gregerson's here, we'll work on that in our marketing, but certainly this is a very diverse community. We know that was, we're the most diverse school in Nevada for sure, but certainly as diverse as I came from California before this, and from a very diverse school, and this certainly stacks up against that. So yeah, we need to get that message out for sure. Yep.
I have a question for Dr. Whithey.
Yep.
Is there any available homework help in the learning lab? Like if the kids are struggling doing their homework, could they come during carpool, maybe to the learning lab and get started on their homework with a teacher there that helps them do that, or maybe before school?
So the question was about homework. Do we offer some sort of homework assistance? Is there a program for homework help? And we have 2 different routes right now. The first is if you just want somebody there monitoring that your child is getting homework, we do suggest that you turn to Ms. Friedman and the after-school MAPS program or extended care, because that is a big space where they have time and a teacher on staff to just proctor and make sure homework is getting completed. Then we also, if your child is a student who needs some additional targeted focus on a specific skill, so say they need to work on identifying vowel pairs that all say the sound A, or they need additional help understanding and conceptualizing what addition is. So they have very targeted areas of needed support. After school, we are creating a program called PALS, Peer Assisted Learning, where we are having middle school and high school students come down to, in a game-like situation, work on those skills with your children. So I am running and identifying those areas that maybe they need some additional support, and then building those games for the children. So they will work with a middle school student to play games that really target those areas of need. So that's a tutoring type support for students who need specific help in targeted areas. So if you just want homework help, that's more the MAP side of thing. If you need targeted supports after school, that's the PALS program. So we have two options for you.
I will sign up for it.
So PALS right now, as we're getting it rolling, is open to first and second graders. And so that is a letter that would be coming home from your teacher for first and second grade. As we get more middle school and high school students involved, we're going to expand the program.
One follow-up question. So for the MAPS program, do the kids actually getting their homework done? Like, is there enough time there? Because I think some kids just have a hard time just sitting down and doing homework. They can do the homework, but they just don't want to. You know what I mean? So is that seeing them get it done, or?
So I think that is maybe a question for Ms. Friedman.
Okay.
When we had spoken about wanting to offer a program that targets, wanting me to build PALS versus a homework help, we had just distinguished those two programs. So I think that would be questions more to target to her.
Okay, that's a question.
Yep. Question?
I understand bringing back PALS that it's going to be a game-like setting. Is there still going to be opportunities for the upper and the middle school kids to work individually with individual, like for math assistance, opposed to in a game-like setting, but more so tutoring so they can get their community service hours and children can still get the help that they need?
So just to clarify, it is tutoring, and they will be doing very targeted working on math, but we're not using the students' homework that they're bringing in. It's in a more fun setting where, say, the game that they're playing has a math problem that they have to solve to move to the next step. So it is tutoring, but it's in a fun approach, because we see that helps reduce the level of fear and anxiety if we present it in a way that makes it fun and engaging, so that they can start tackling some of those concepts that may be more challenging.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming today. And my door is always open. I have enjoyed getting to know your kids. I believe I know all of them here. And so everybody have a great day. Thank you.